The last video I did was the night before, preparing for, and the day of my tummy tuck and my chest reduction surgery. So now I want to talk about the first 24, 48, 72 hours and what that immediate recovery process looked like. First of all, waking up from the surgery, the procedure finished around 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon. It had been about 5.5 hours. I have a very vague, hazy memory of being put back into my bed, but that's it. It took a couple of hours after that for me to actually fully wake up, so that was around 4 p.m. I was still drunk, I guess. I was very groggy, very dopey. I wasn't in pain, but I could feel sort of like, I guess you'd call it the sting of fresh incisions. So, I mean, obviously, you would expect that. It wasn't like sort of painful. I was a bit too dopey and a bit too out of it to move, so I just kind of lay there and just tried to gather my thoughts for probably about an hour or so. I'd been kind of left there on rails, so I assumed there were no complications or anything, and I just kind of lay there in a bit of a daze, I guess. I was very scared to move though. I could just kind of look down and see all bandages and support that was covering my wounds, so I was like, I don't know what's going on there, so I'm just gonna stay where I am and not move a muscle. My lunch was right next to me, and I don't know how long it had been sitting there. I was still reluctant to reach my arms out, but it was close enough that I could kind of use T-Rex arms to just grab at it. So I was able to eat. I had a lot of water as well. I didn't really have an appetite. I wasn't that hungry, but I kind of just felt like I should have something. And then after that, my fill was also in reach. I managed to video call my family. They had actually called the ward a couple of times during my procedure, and one of the nurses called them afterwards to let them know how I was at. So she let them know that it went okay, and they let me know that it went okay. So it was kind of weird that that was the first time I had confirmation that the surgery went as expected. A bit after that, the nurse came in, so I finally got to actually speak to someone. They said the procedure went well, there were no complications, the surgeon was very happy. The nurse checked my blood pressure, just checked if I was in any pain or anything like that. Made sure that my wounds were all dressed and covered properly, and then actually helped me get up to go to the toilet for the first time. That was terrifying. I mean, first of all, I couldn't push myself up with my arms, so I had to kind of roll onto my side and hope I'd land on my feet, and of course the nurse was there to help me do that safely. But yeah, even with painkillers, fresh stitches or fresh surgical wounds are going to hurt to some extent. You could really feel where those incisions were. And throughout that time, I was just hobbling along, and I kept worrying, something's going to come undone. I'm just going to be sitting there or standing there with just an open flap of skin and an open wound and just not have any idea what to do. This was despite being bandaged up, so I couldn't actually see my wounds, which, given how I was feeling, that's probably a good thing at that time. I was quite dehydrated, and I hadn't really had anything to eat or drink for a few hours apart from what I had for lunch. I didn't really need to go to the toilet, but I kind of figured, just given how difficult it was getting up and lying back down, it makes sense to go while I have help there with me. And the nurse helped me back into bed, and it was a hospital bed, so I had chest and legs elevated. I was lying in a V shape on my back, and then the nurse just checked in, just made sure I was okay, made sure I had anything, let me know how to contact her or just reach her if I need anything, and then off she went. I was kind of just left there with my phone, so for no apparent reason, I started binge watching Downton Abbey on Netflix. I video called my family once more just because I was a little bit more alert and a bit more awake. My dinner came the same as my lunch, and then the nurse came back and she handed me over to the night nurse, who introduced herself. She just checked on me, gave me some more painkillers because they were starting to wear off, and let me know that she'd come in and check on me a couple of times throughout the night, but otherwise I was free to do what I want. That night I actually slept pretty well. I was still drugged, of course. The only sort of interruptions I had were the nurse coming to check in on me and check my blood pressure. The day after surgery, I was up bright and early. I was still a little bit dopey, but the first thing I noticed was that the front of my right eye had been shaved. I thought I just imagined it because I thought I was still drunk. Anyway, the surgeon came to see me first thing in the morning, and I was still dopey. He started to talk about how the procedure went, what he did, and how long it was and all that, and I kind of interrupted and just asked why my thigh was shaved. I didn't 100% get the answer, but it was something about needing to attach a metallic plate onto a smooth surface. Apparently it's standard practice. I just didn't know that and got very confused. Anyways, once we cleared that up, the surgeon helped me get up. He undid my support bandages so I could actually see some of my wounds for the first time. And we did that in front of the mirror so I could actually see things properly. They were still covered in tape, but it was nice to kind of see where they'd be positioned. Along the waistline and up the middle of the abdomen looked very smooth. The belly button, it had to be reconstructed, so it had an extra layer of bandages over that, so I couldn't really see anything. And that area stayed numb for a good few weeks afterwards. Main stitches under the chest were pretty much as expected, so coming under the groove of my chest muscle, and you can still see there. It's a little bit asymmetrical because there was more tissue removed from this side, but that's just the scar positioning. The actual contour and the shape is the same. It doesn't look it from front view because of where the scars are positioned. The nipples I was very squeamish about because they were grafted back on, and there was sort of like, you could see some of the extra stitching around there. So I wasn't comfortable with that and tried my best to ignore it. And then the only other thing was what my surgeon did was he put a row of external stitches along here, just below my main wounds. And that was to help with scar positioning and helping with scar placement. and they were external, so you kind of just see the wiring going through, and that really freaked me out. Those were going to come out 48 hours later, but while they were in, they did freak me out, and they really did sting. And that was it with the surgeon for the time. He checked in, everything was looking good, so there wasn't really anything else for him to be there for. Then the nurse brought me some breakfast and said I can stay there until whatever time I wanted. At that point, I called my family, just found out what time they'd be able to come pick me up, so they were going to come in the afternoon, which meant I had the morning pretty much to do whatever. I spent most of my morning watching Downton Abbey, and then I also started to tell people that I had this procedure done. I wasn't comfortable talking about it before, and then because of COVID testing and stuff, I wasn't even 100% sure it was going to happen until the night before it. So I wasn't really keen to start telling people. And now that it was done and I'm in recovery, I felt more comfortable talking about it. The swelling was starting to gather by the day after. It was really bad around the abdomen. I was wearing my support garment and I could just kind of feel it starting to burst over. The middle of the chest wasn't too bad. It was under the chest, sort of here. There was quite a lot of puckering, and you could really feel that sort of area on top of the wound. That was starting to come over, and it wasn't painful, but it was noticeable. And one thing with the abdominal swelling, which really stressed me out for a while, was the fact that it was asymmetrical. So it was quite bad on the left, but then on the right side, it was like, if my left side was sort of to here, my right side was kind of to there. It was pretty dramatic, and it really stressed me out. I thought, am I just going to end up with one side bigger than the other? As you can see, it's evened out. This is about 5 months-ish after, so it evened out a lot. It is still swollen there, so it's not 100%, and I'm still going through that recovery process and watching the swelling go down. That asymmetry has gone. As the afternoon approached and my family was getting ready to come, the nurse talked me through the main things I needed to be aware of. No shower for 48 hours, summer fresh foods would stay completely dry. That did bug me a lot. Painkillers for 48 to 72 hours, and then as needed after that. Laxatives in case the painkillers can cause constipation, some of them, so laxatives in case I needed to use those. Wearing the support garment day and night, sleeping on my back, and then booking in my follow-up appointments. So I had one after 48 hours to remove the external stitches that were kind of the second row under my chest, and then booked in the 1-week one and 2-week ones. So those would be at the hospital, and then the 4-week one onwards would be with the surgeon. Then the family came to pick me up. When you are in a car straight after this kind of procedure, you do need an extra cushion between your body and the seatbelt. So my family brought me an extra cushion. I kind of just sat there holding it to my chest and seatbelt over the cushion. It creates an extra layer of protection between the seatbelt and your wound. So just in case something happens, you've got the extra layer of security. I got home, brought myself upstairs. Going up and down stairs wasn't really a problem. The thing was that because I was so swollen, I was hunched over literally like this, and that puts a lot of strain on your lower back. So I couldn't really walk properly for longer than 30 seconds just because my back was starting to hurt. In terms of setting myself up at home, there are a few things that I needed to make sure I had in place before my procedure so that I could look after myself afterwards. Now, unfortunate that I'm staying with my family, so I had my parents and my brother to take care of me. With the chest procedure I had, my arms were not going to be able to reach past shoulder height. They're definitely not overhead, so I needed to have plenty of button up and zip up tops within arm's reach so that I could actually, get myself dressed. I needed to have my bed set up so that I had enough pillows to keep my chest elevated, and then I had something under my legs to keep my thighs elevated, so I was lying in a V shape on my back. I didn't want anyone sort of making a fuss over me about meal times and anything, so I did a lot of meal prep beforehand and then just put the stuff in the freezer, and then at meal times it could just come out, microwave, and I'm good to go. And I put an extra chair in my room just so I had somewhere extra to sit that wasn't the bed. By the way, sitting up and down, there were no issues with, as long as the chair wasn't too low, so I didn't have to push myself up with my arms. Getting up and down from the bed, however, was a little bit more challenging, so I wanted a slightly higher chair. The first night, I could not sleep at all. I couldn't get used to sleeping on my back. I couldn't find a comfortable sleeping position. If I wanted to adjust my position, I couldn't move my arms to do it, which meant I had to sort of roll myself out of bed, try and use my T-Rex arms to adjust my pillows and my cushions and everything, and then roll myself back onto bed. Pain-wise, the main stitches themselves were fine. It was those external extra stitches under my chest. Those were giving me a lot of grief. It kind of felt like there were just spikes every time we tried to breathe. And then the following day, not much happened. It was my first full day at home. I stayed in my room most of the day. The family came in to check on me a few times. No shower still, so I've been using antibacterial wipes to just kind of get the feeling a little bit of cleanliness. And I just watched more Downton. Still don't have much of an appetite, but it was gradually starting to come back, so I ate a little bit more. I have been told to drink plenty of water, A, to help with constipation, B, to help with swelling, C, if nothing else, just to get me up and walking because I need to go to the toilet. So I had about 2.5 or 3 liters of water that day, and it did the trick in terms of getting me up and going to the toilet. And it also did help with my digestion, so that was good. Still taking painkillers. There wasn't a lot of pain for the main wounds. I was mainly taking it for what was under my chest. And the only relief I really got was knowing for a fact that they would be coming out the next day. And then the second night at home, again, I didn't sleep well. The extra stitches hurt. I couldn't get comfortable. I wasn't used to sleeping on my back. And I don't know if it's just something about your body recovering from something like this, that when you feel hot, you feel really hot. When you feel cold, you feel really cold. But I was struggling with those temperature extremes, and I'm guessing it's something to do with the recovery process as well. But yeah, that was challenging as well. Third day, it felt a little bit more comfortable, not that drastically different, but I was a tiny bit more upright and just enough that I could walk for sort of 2 or 3 minutes without my back hurting. And that meant it was more comfortable going from my bedroom downstairs and coming back up, which meant I could get my own drinks, I could get my own food, and it was nice to be able to do that again. It had only been like 3 days or something, but I do like to be able to do things for myself, so it was nice to start getting that back. Still limited arm reach, still swollen, still in the showers, still taking painkillers. When I was going for my first follow-up appointment, because it was short notice when it was booked for, I did get a taxi both ways, and I had a really nice driver who, who's very chatty, very friendly, very supportive, asked a lot of questions about my procedure, my weight loss, and some weight loss tips as well. And again, in the car, I had an extra cushion between my body and the seatbelt. And the driver was, very cautious, and it was very smooth drive. And then he also stayed around and picked me up and brought me home, so that was nice. Still not massively hungry, but I was eating a tiny bit more, so my appetite was gradually building a little bit back to normal each day. I did log into my work laptop very briefly just to let some of my colleagues know, because they knew what I was having done. So just wanted to let them know that it's done and it went well, there were no complications. And yeah, I was kind of itching to get back to work because my brain doesn't do well when it's not busy. But I thought better of it, make the most of the time that I was taken off and let my body do its thing and recover. So I had my first follow-up 48 hours after my procedure. Normally the first follow-up is 1 week after, but because I had those extra stitches, it was recommended to have it 48 hours so those could come out. And the nurses were, very lovely, very friendly, very calming, still squeamish about these stitches. They lay me down on the table, took them out, and that did sting as well. I guess, having some metal wire being pulled through your skin is not ever going to be a comfortable feeling. But yeah, they got those out. They changed the tapes as well, so it was the first time I could actually see the wounds. I didn't really want to see them in too much detail, but it was kind of nice to just see that I have been sewn up again. The nipples were still freaking me out because they were grafted back on, and you could see some of the external stitching on there as well. But the other wounds look, very clean and very tidy. The stitches were internal, so you couldn't actually see much. So that was quite nice. And then they just confirmed the date and time of my 1 week follow-up, and off I went. Third night, slightly better sleep. Still found it difficult to get comfortable. Still need to get up every time I want to adjust my sleeping position, even a little bit. But not having those extra stitches made a massive difference. I didn't sleep all the way through the night, but it felt a lot more comfortable, and it was nice just being able to lie still and not feel the sting for a few minutes. That's the first 72 hours or so. I'll talk more about the rest of week 1 and a few other things around sort of managing pain and self-care and swelling and all that in the next video, from the date of the operation to 1 week post-op. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and I can do another video to answer those. Please remember to subscribe to the channel for future updates.